Hi, my name is Cornelius Raseobi. I'm the youth president of the Congress of the People. And I'm sitting here with the national president, Lekota. Honorable Sir, greetings to you. How are you?
Good morning. I'm very well indeed, and happy to join you here.
Yes, wonderful. There's a lot of questions that the people of South Africa are asking, and you seem to be the only person that is answering these questions to the core without beyond a shadow of a doubt. Now, do we need to amend the constitution in order to expropriate land in South Africa? Is there a need?
Actually, no. There's no need whatsoever to amend the constitution.
Yes.
And secondly, in order to expropriate land, we don't need to change the constitution because the right to expropriate land is already given in this constitution in section 25.
Oh, the right is already there?
It's already there, it's given there.
Okay.
However, the problem is that people have not read the constitution to understand it. Even the politicians or political parties that are advocating this, they are looking for a shortcut to a problem that does not need a shortcut, that needs a long roundabout way to sort it out. It's important to understand that if you read this constitution, you must start by understanding it from the beginning of the constitution.
Yes.
It's just like reading the Bible.
Okay.
You know, you can't take the Bible and just go and read some section anywhere inside the constitution, the Bible, and say you'll understand.
Yes.
Here is a constitution that first of all starts with a preamble.
Yes.
And that preamble will indicate to you that those who had been fighting a struggle, fighting each other, since at least the Union of South Africa was declared in 1910, they now came together for the first time to say it's a futile exercise that we continue to fight and kill each other. We must solve the problems of the country.
Yes.
And then they agreed, if you look at the preamble, they agreed that it is possible to solve the problems the country is faced with if we first start with establishing peace from among the people of South Africa.
Okay.
And secondly, creating stability in the country so that we build rather than destroy.
All right.
And the first, then of course from there they went to chapter 1 of the Constitution. And in chapter 1, we made a declaration. We said that is after we agreed that there is no longer going to be small bits and pieces called Kwakwa, a Transkei.
The Bantustans.
The Bantustans.
Yes.
And there was no longer going to be prohibitions like the Indian section of the population who were not allowed to live in the Free State.
Yes.
They could drive very fast through the Free State, but they couldn't stay in the Free State.
Oh, you couldn't actually stay over there?
If you were a South African of Indian origin,
yes,
you could not.
Okay.
Yes. Now, having agreed on those prohibitions, we then said, let us agree that from today, South Africa the Republic of South Africa is one sovereign democratic state.
Okay.
Which meant now, from that day on, any one of us could live anywhere and everywhere they want to live in South Africa.
Okay.
They could own property anywhere they would like to own it.
All right.
It didn't mean that from immediately that day they would have properties there. No. But what he did say is, now everybody has a right
yes,
to live anywhere in South Africa because it is one sovereign democratic state. In Section 3, it then says there is a common South African citizenship.
Okay.
And all citizens are equally entitled to the rights, privileges, and benefits of citizenship.
So equally?
Equally.
Black and white?
Anywhere. Anywhere. You could live anywhere, you could go anywhere. Nobody was going to ask you, where's your pass?
All right.
You see? Where's your ID? And in fact, from that day on, it meant all of us would carry the same identity cards.
Okay.
Everything the same.
So this stopped the whole war that was taking place. It immediately stopped when this was introduced.
Not only did it stop it, it laid the foundations
Okay.
of how we were going to live our lives going forward.
Mr. President, the people of South Africa are concerned that, when this thing happens, they saw in Zimbabwe what happened when land expropriation happened, that the country went down the drain. Is South Africa making the same decisions that Zimbabwe made? Can we make a speculation to say, if this happened, this is what will happen?
Yeah, let me say this to answer your question. I want to start from this point. Until the day we wrote these words into the Constitution, under the leadership of President Mandela, surrounded by such leaders as O.R. Tambo,
yes,
Walter Sisulu, Govan Mbeki, Mel Bettina Sisulu, and others, and all the leaders of other communities, it meant that whereas before CODESA, Africans in this country were confined to 13% of the territory of South Africa.
Okay.
Now it meant we were free to go and stay anywhere.
All right.
In the other 87% that we were not, until then were not allowed to stay on. And therefore it meant we could walk out of the Bantustans and stay where we want. If we got a job somewhere,
you can go stay there.
You could go and stay there, etc., etc. As yet, we had not yet dealt with how to correct what had gone wrong.
All right.
Now, by the time you get to Section 25, you see, I'm only talking about Section 1
and 2.
3 and 3. 1 and 3.
Yes.
By the time I get to Section
25,
there would be how many other sections? 24 sections of the Constitution. It's important to understand what did Section 7, for instance, say.
Okay.
It spoke about rights. Everybody, same rights. Now detailed that. It spoke about equality.
Okay.
So that where, for instance, we couldn't go in the same door to buy in a shop, now those were going to be corrected as well. It spoke about freedom of expression.
Okay.
The right to say whatever you feel like saying without being. So all of that. It even spoke about, in Section 11, it spoke about the right to life.
Okay.
That nobody may be deprived of their life. So, however, by the time you get to 25, we deal with specific issues.
Okay.
Such as the right to your property, and we say clearly there that no one may be deprived of their property.
So all this, we're actually laying a foundation towards Section 25.
Yes. Now, if you jump all these others to go to 25, you will find yourself entangled in all kinds of difficulties. But when we go to Section 25, because we wanted to correct the imbalances of the past, such as, for instance, to get the African sections into the Bantustans, they had to be removed from parts of the country.
Okay.
Now, in order to correct that, we said expropriation may happen. It may be done, carried out by government.
Okay.
And then we say for public purpose or for public interest.
Okay.
Now, public purpose is where you want to build a road, where you want to build schools and things like that. But the more important one is public interest.
Okay.
Because the people that had now been confined to 13% of the land now needed to come out of there. First of all, government had the land in its hand that
Okay.
it had taken previously.
Oh, there was land that was taken previously.
It was taken by the government, previous governments, more specifically, the 1913 Land Acts of General JBM Herzog.
Yes.
And others which were taken under Group Areas Act and forced removals of various types. Now, we wanted to reverse those atrocities,
Okay.
those unjust actions. Now, we were aware that the land that had been taken from various of our communities was registered in the deeds offices.
Okay.
And so, look, I must say that to you because there's a general assumption that the land that was taken from the black sections was given out as freebies to the white families and all of that.
Yes.
Now, that is a fallacious assumption.
Okay.
Those lands were registered in the
Deeds office.
deeds offices. The only thing is the whites were allowed to buy some of those properties from the government, the previous government.
Or they bought from the government.
From the previous government, they bought it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because there would have been a difficulty to decide who do I give land free and who do I not give free. So they had to be sold this land.
All right.
Now, that being the position, we then concluded that the people whose properties were taken, who had still their title deeds, could bring them to the government that would be elected. Mm-hmm. And that government would then go to the deeds offices, identify who had bought that land, for how much,
Yes.
and what had happened to it in the interim.
Okay.
Now, the government, the new government, was empowered, where it found such land, to expropriate it from those who would have bought it,
Okay.
but with compensation.
With compensation.
Because we couldn't punish citizens who had bought land not knowing that this land
Was
had
actually
belonged to the grandfather of Raseobi.
Yes, yes, yes.
So we say to them, look, sir, the government of apartheid sold you this land wrongfully. It was not their land. They had taken it by force from the grandfather of these young people here, including Mr. Raseobi here.
Yes.
So we must now give you back your money with whatever else we need to do and take it and give it back free.
All right.
Give it back to the great-grandchildren of this Raseobi. In this way, we would be correcting the injustice that was done in 1913
Okay.
without creating another crime. And so we would give it to the great-grandchildren free and would assist them if they wanted to be agriculturalists, to then, of course, to can work it and benefit from it. So Section 25 is the section that gives the government the right, either if they had taken your land, your great-grandfather's land, either to give it back to you free,
Okay.
if it had not been bought by anybody.
So all along, the government had a right to actually exercise this particular mandate.
Even now, the government of the ANC still has that right. And I dare say, there is land that was taken by force from our people back in 1913 and subsequently. The ANC government should long have given that land back to the great-grandchildren of those from whom it has been taken. Because even if it was not bought, if you look through the records of the deeds offices, you must find that this land had belonged to so-and-so and was taken by force by the government. Give it back with title deeds to those great-grandchildren or the grandchildren of those who lost it, and give them support to run it. That the government of the ANC has not done this, it's not the fault of the Constitution. Because here we say they may expropriate.
Yes.
But with compensation.
With compensation.
In which case, in the case in which they took land and was still in their hands and nobody had bought it, they don't have to pay anybody. They just have to give it back to the families that used to own it. Why did they not do it? It's not because the Constitution refused. The Constitution says it must be given back. Indeed, Section 4 of the Constitution says that public interest includes the nation's commitment to land reform. So why is the ANC government not giving this land back as part of land reform
program? Yes. So they're sitting on top of the land.
Yeah, so if now they want us to get rid of Section 25 because they have failed to do what Section 25 said they must do. No, we must retain Section 25. We can get
But they must do.
No, we must get rid of the people, must vote them out.
Okay.
And vote for a government that's going to respect this law, this constitution, written under the guidance of Mandela, Oliver Tambo, and all the leaders of all the communities who were at CODESA. The majority, by the way, at CODESA was us, the black sections of the population.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we were the majority, sir. How could we pass a constitution that said blacks must not be given land? No. We could not. There was no possibility we could do that. And when President Mandela went to Sharpeville,
yes,
you must remember F.W. de Klerk and the other were only representing, the white community at that time was only 10% in this country. And the decisions that we were taking in CODESA, we were taking as majority.
All right.
And we were the majority in there. Please.
So it was not Nelson Mandela who was taking decisions. It was a collective of all...
including the Bantustan leaders. Unkosi Buthelezi. Do you think he would vote for that? You know, the late Lucas Mangope.
Yes.
Even though these people had served in those structures, they had, I must say, they still have that pride of being Africans. And they wanted, we all must enjoy equal status. That's why they voted with us for this constitution.
Yes.
To assume that because people had been in the Bantustan, they voted against this is a serious mistake. We were there, and they were there, not compelled by anybody. So, this Section 25 is critical for us. Now, let me show you something else. A lot of our people are here in the urban centers. Now, because you come from mid-range areas, you will know that there is Deep Sloot.
Yes.
You'll know that there's areas like Olivenhout.
Yes.
Now, this constitution at Section 26 says this: everyone has the right to have access to adequate housing. Have a right. Everyone has a right to to have access to adequate housing.
All right.
And then it says the state must, not may, if they feel like it,
Yes.
must take it must, sorry, let me just see this clearly. It must take reasonable legislative and other measures to ensure, to achieve the progressive realization of this right. Now, it says everyone has the right to have access to adequate housing.
Yes.
Now, we already know that Section 25, this is Section 26, we already know that Section 25 has said that where there's shortage of land, government may expropriate with compensation. Now, why is the government of the ANC not expropriating land around and then zoning it into residential plots with water services, with sewerage services and electricity services, and then saying to the people, now you, instead of living in hostels,
Yes.
and all of that, now you can come and get a plot and you can build and all of that and so on. No. Our people are packed on top of each other in Olivenhout Bos. Deep Sloot is over. Children are being born, they are dying of rats and things like that. Rats eating them. Why has the government not acted in this way? They had money to give to the Guptas via that farm called Estina in the Free State.
Yes.
They had money to give to the Guptas to have a big wedding in Sun City. And they had millions of rands to build a little Durban in Nkandla. But they have not had money to give to our people to build proper homes in the towns and cities. If you go to Khayelitsha, our people are living in dams when it's raining. Children are being born in tents that are sitting on water. Is it the fault of the Constitution? No, it is not. The Constitution has given government the power to provide any amount of land for adequate housing. Now, the only reason those who want Section 25 eliminated is to hide the criminal behavior, the criminal failure to comply with it and to change conditions for the better. And therefore, we must resist, we must refuse to get rid of Section 25. Where there is shortage of land, when the government, because now it's still sitting with the majority of the land in its hands, even today. Where that land is finished, whenever it can set it to be finished, I don't know when it will be.
Yes.
If it can set to be finished, then the government can approach big landowners
Yes.
to expropriate.
With compensation.
With compensation. And others, by the way, I've also heard even the current president saying that there are some white people who want to. It is quite clear that the goodwill is abounding, because even some of the white families are offering to give that land so that other people can use it. We don't need to take anybody's farms when the government is still sitting with loads and loads of land in their hands, which can be given free to the people. Let it be given out.
Yes.
That is the thing.
So the people of South Africa must know that the government is sitting on loads of land.
Yes, indeed.
Yes,
yes
that
indeed.
must be given to the people.
And let me tell you another secret, by the way. Many of the people say, look, I don't have the skills to farm.
Yes.
So, former Minister Nkwinti, he was the Minister of Land Affairs, told Parliament that people bring this land back because they don't have the skills to do so.
Okay.
To farm. However, the authors of the Constitution anticipated that problem would be there.
Yes.
So in section 29, we wrote the following. Everyone has the right to basic education.
Okay.
Including adult basic education. So we made provision not only for education of the children,
but also for adults.
Also for adults. You now have been working as a farmer. For the first time, an opportunity is there to gain access land and then to work it. But if you don't have the training, we can send you to Glen for training. We can send you to Potchefstroom and other universities, where Stellenbosch and all other universities, excuse me, where we can give you basic training.
Okay.
And once you've got the training, we give you land. We give you seeds. We give you support by way of implements. Now and then, of course, the ruling party gives to its family friends some tractors and some seeds and so on. They do that now.
Okay.
But no, not for the rank and file, the rest of the people. They don't do that there.
They give to their own friends.
They only give to their friends, their relatives, and so on. Now, Section 29 will give you training.
Okay.
And will give you, therefore, access to that land, because we won't give you land if you don't know how to use it. Land is a scarce commodity. It must be given so it can be used for the welfare of the people of this country. Now, why should we get rid of Section 25? There is no reason. There's no reason you can find if you read the Constitution. And as I've already said, don't read it and end up there, because you will not read Section 26.
Yes.
Because now they are only looking at Section 25. If you read Section 26, you will see that those who need housing, they are covered. If you read Section 29, you'll see that those who don't have training will...
they're also covered.
Yes. And you can go on and you'll find other sections of the Constitution that will help you understand the whole Constitution and the work that needs to be done. So there's no reason whatsoever why we should get rid of Section 25. In fact, when you get rid of Section 25, you get rid of a section that empowers you to correct all the racially motivated land abuse of the black communities. No, it must be there. It will deal with 1913 Land Acts. It will deal with the 1936 Land and Trust Act. It will deal with the Group Areas Act that came under apartheid. It will deal with the Location Acts, I think, that removed the Indian people, a section of the population, out of Durban and moved them out and drove them away from the city centers. It will deal with all the corruption that was done under the legislation of apartheid. Don't get rid of Section 25. We've dealt with all of those things there. You can only do that if you want to support the criminals that abused our people and communities and families.
So it must be clear that these criminals are intending to steal from the citizens of the country.
Well, as they have been stealing now, we've lost millions and millions in this country as a result of the corruption of the ruling party. And in fact, as I speak to you now, our national debt, which was just under 20, well, 28 billion rands when Thabo Mbeki left office. Today it is 2.7 trillion.
Sure.
Trillion rands. It means since the government, current government came into power under Zuma, we've lost everything. And in fact, I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these days we could be declared bankrupt. Because, I mean, a few weeks back, I saw the president selling more of South Africa to the Chinese, to the other countries, and huge debts. Now, it's important that we must move very fast. As a nation, we must move very fast to arrest this deterioration and to enable our country to begin to stop the wheel and reverse it. If you borrow money to pay salaries of state employees, you are borrowing to consume. You are not borrowing to invest. The best way is always to borrow to invest so that you generate more than what you borrowed so that you can then pay.
Because a lot of South Africans are thinking these are pretty much investments, only to find out this is borrowing. Because they are of assumption that, because the ANC, the ruling party is changing the whole thing as if this is an empowerment, while it's not.
You are the leader of the youth of the Congress of the People. And I would like to say to you that you need to be talking to the youth of our country, black and white, saying to them, telling them, look, this government that is borrowing and borrowing huge amounts of money like this is creating a debt that we and our children and our great-grandchildren will have to pay. You guys, not us, you will have to pay the debts that this government is creating today. So it's important that when you go to vote, you must ask yourself, do we want to vote for a government that is creating debts today so that we must just leave to pay the debts they are creating today? Or should we vote for parties that will stop this and reverse it? That's your challenge.
Yeah. Well, that was President Ntatemusiwa Lekota, the National President of Congress of the People, explaining in depth the constitution of the country and the responsibilities that we have on the constitution and the ability to expropriate with compensation. My name is Cornelius Raseobi, the National Youth President, Congress of the People, and we have come to the end of our show, and we believe that you'll be in a position to actually understand in depth the constitution of the country and the need not to actually change the constitution, but to implement what has been put through for the benefit of the citizens of the country. Thank you very much.